Hey everybody, my name is Jared and I am a Master Mason in the state of Mississippi in the United States of America. And this is the tie of past Grand Master Britt, which he had done by Edgar over at Masonic Revival. Today's viewer's question is, I have a question about the slogan on their website, making good men better. Like in what way and how? So this is a great question about the practical application of Freemasonry into our lives. However, this slogan, as you're calling it, is something that is a bit of a controversy in Freemasonry. Because, does it really? The claim here being that Freemasonry as an organization takes good men and makes them better. But how can that be so? This is not a forced organization. This is something that people had to make the determination themselves to join, and then in joining they can decide to leave it at any time. They could leave it the same day they joined it, the next day, or 10 years down the road. And how in such a voluntary fraternity where membership is required to be paid, it costs money, and all these other stipulations that make it clear that we're not going to be able to force anything on anybody. Yeah, sure, we can set rules and we can tell you, if you don't abide by these bylaws and these principles, then we're not going to let you be a member. But the slogan says, makes good men better, and that tends to be taken as a very forceful thing, like no matter what, Freemasonry will make you better if you were a good man in the first place. So let's sort of tear this down just a little bit without over analyzing it too much. First and foremost, Freemasonry being a worldwide organization, you may not find this phrase being used everywhere, but it does seem to be pretty common. So take it with a grain of salt. It is not something that Freemasonry across the world has to use. We've talked in other videos about how every jurisdiction has their own sovereignty, and as such they're going to come up with their own slogans and phrases to try to promote the fraternity or to try and explain what the fraternity does. Okay? So no one spokesman for the whole group is what we're really trying to say. So this also sort of puts a connotation into things that essentially says that if you weren't a good man in the first place, there's no hope for you. And that also stirs up a bit of the controversy. After all, it specifically takes a point to say that it takes good men and makes them better. It doesn't say that it just makes better men. So what are we really trying to say with that? I think there is a factual, like take it for the actual definitions of the word, and then there's the intent of what's trying to be said here. So I don't think we can look at this in a sense of how the words could be defined, which might say that if you have ever had any sort of an instance in your life that would be considered morally objectionable, and as such in your culture you might be considered to have been a bad person or have done bad things in the past, that it's impossible for Freemasonry to have an influence on your life and make you better. I don't think we can read it that way. I think the intended message here is to say that if you can have a space for goodness in your heart, then Freemasonry can help you expand upon that. I also don't think that we can take the literal definition and try to suggest that this phrase means that Freemasonry as an organization, as an institution, somehow can force you to become good. I think what we instead have to realize here is that Freemasonry provides you with some instruction, some tools and knowledge that can help you become better yourself. So this is not a situation there just because you paid your dues, just because you came to lodge whenever your lodge meets, that you are by default going to become a better person. I'd like to think that maybe because of being exposed to men who ought to be living in a moral and upright way, that just by the influence of being around them, that might somehow wear off on you. But the thing here isn't that Freemasonry is not going to bring you into the fraternity and then put you through some kind of program where at the end you get a gold star and they say, congratulations, you're a better man. That's just not the way it works. Instead, you have to be the person, look inside of yourself and say, okay, Freemasonry talks about these kind of moral principles and applies them to them in these kind of situations. What can I learn from that? How can I apply that to my day-to-day life? A lot of Freemasonry, for example, uses the symbolism of building a physical structure, being stone masons and erecting a building like King Solomon's Temple. But I'm not a stonemason. That's not what I do for a living. So how in the world does that apply to me? We've got to be able to take a more philosophical understanding of these lessons and think about how to apply them in our lives, not just at work, at home, and how we deal with the general public as well. So Freemasonry, making good men better. Why? Because we can all be better. I don't know of another way to explain that. If there is a single person out there who thinks that this is it, they've reached the top, there's nothing whatsoever about themselves that they can improve, then I feel confident I can show you somebody who is wrong and has limited their understanding of what's possible. I'm confident of that. I think there's always something we can be improving on. So the why is because we should always be trying to improve ourselves at some capacity. And the how is very dependent upon you specifically, because Freemasonry is not going to put you through a step-by-step program on how to turn yourself into a better person. It's going to give you some illusions and examples, and then you will have to find out how to apply that in your life. Now, you may not have to do that entirely on your own. You may be able to have those discussions inside your lodge room with your brethren. You may be able to speak to them on the side. Maybe you guys just went out for lunch somewhere and one of these kind of conversations comes up. But in the end, you have to hold yourself responsible for actually taking the time to understand these lessons and think about ways to apply them to yourself. You have to decide to reach out and buy books and read other people's opinions and how they have applied these, so that you can maybe get a better understanding of how to go about that. So the how is very much dependent on the individual, and this can go way back to Delphic maxims of things like know thyself, which is a very common phrase in like the Scottish Rite and all sorts of mystery schools. So really something you can take into hand and that you have to put in your own heart and really put to use. There's nothing I can do to make you become a better man. Thank you all so much for taking the time to watch. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks to everybody who heads over to the website and checks out the donation page. I really do appreciate all of your support, and we'll see you next time. Bye.